You guys might be able to tell we're in a garage now. Prelude's under some cover, which is lovely. I've since moved houses. I have this new place, which is, luckily you've got this barn that's been kind of turned into a garage. It's a really old sided cedar barn with aluminum tin roof, and it's gonna serve, oh, and it's got a concrete floor, so I can use a jack. It's freaking awesome. And this is gonna be the workshop for now. So I'm gonna be working on the Prelude. I know a lot of you have been waiting in anticipation for Prelude content, and today I've got some stuff that I need to just dive into and fix on this car. I'm gonna be replacing the O2 sensor. I'm gonna be replacing, don't quote me on this. I think it's the air intake temp sensor that's on the back of the carbureted motor's air intake. And I've been having this really bad idle, and when I get on throttle, it just wants to bog down, and I thought it was a fuel-related issue until I started getting a check engine light, and I'll throw up the video of that code. So based on that, it looks like it's a code 1, which is an oxygen content code, which I'm hoping the O2 sensor is going to fix. You may also notice these fresh spots on the floor, and I've come to know that my power steering system is still leaking, and I think that the reservoir itself might be cracked, so I'm gonna have to drain the whole thing and take a closer look at it. But actually a lot of this stuff is from the transmission side. And on these carbureted motors, there's a million and one things preventing me from getting you a clear shot of what is leaking, but to sum it up, I'm pretty sure it's the axle seal, because that is where most of the moisture is down there. And also, I notice a lot of wet on the firewall back here, and I think it's because the axle is spinning and spraying it all over everything back here, so it's starting to add up. And just in case anyone's wondering, I did replace the rear main seal when I put this transmission in, so it shouldn't be that, although I won't jump to any conclusions. I do fortunately still have my old transmission, my busted one here, and I can kind of show you guys. Right here is where the axle would go in, and you can see that seal that goes around it. I'm gonna probably have to pull the axles out of obviously the new transmission and replace those seals. First things first, because we're working on the electrical, we definitely have to disconnect the battery. So I'm gonna pop off the negative terminal. I'm also really sorry about the contrast of lighting going on in this video. I realize that it's pretty rough. So I'm obviously new to this location, and I'm gonna have to figure out lighting. I did put some shop lights up, but when the sun is blaring in like this, they just don't compete. So it's really hard for me to create a lot of light on the car and whatnot. So bear with me, it'll get better. So we'll pop the negative off of there. I put some dielectric grease on these posts last time, so it comes off really easily, no corrosion. So the O2 sensor is right here, coming off of the, again, carbureted motor. This is probably different if you have the fuel injected Prelude, but I have the carbureted motor. My O2 is right here, comes off with a 1 wire and chases down into this electrical connector. It looks like the O2, at least the old one, I might be able to just snip this wire here and then put a socket over this to get it off. But I may have to take off this entire exhaust manifold shield, because in order to get down onto that nut there on the sensor, this may have to come off, but we're gonna see how it goes. I'm gonna start by unplugging this guy because we don't need it plugged in at this point. I think I am just gonna take the manifold shield off just to make it a little bit easier. So it looks like just 3 12 mil bolts. Oh yeah. I wonder if you could put anti-seize on these, because they probably get really freaking hot. I wonder if it would kind of melt the anti-seize or at least dry it out, but I may try and put a little anti-seize in here when I put these back in. That's definitely gonna break, I think. I'm gonna grab a little bit of WD or something. A little bit of PB Blaster. Just trying to be patient and not go ham with it. As I pull some of the threads out, I just lay on a little more PB Blaster and keep slowly working it, because it's better to be patient than it is to have to tap out a broken bolt. Wouldn't be working on the Prelude if I didn't drop the bolt. Got it. This thing is loose. Hopefully we can just pull this off. Is this thing necessary? Is it necessary? Because like every other car just has exposed headers, right? Or at least most of them. What, this bracket here, which isn't doing anything. What is this for? Is it really in my way? I can't get this out. Ah, now the AC is in the way. Oh boy, so close. Okay, with a little bit of persuasion of a 7/8 wrench and a rubber mallet, I was able to knock this loose. So now I can hopefully spin this out. And for the record, I think you might be able to do this without, well, you can do this without removing this entirely. I think taking the bolts out of the manifold shield helps a lot because it buys you actually a little bit of space to move this around and get a better fit onto the sensor. Out she comes, and I don't know, it's probably original. It says Japan on it. Don't see many other markings. Oh, it's an NGK, so possibly, unless they used NGK on these out of the factory, possibly original, maybe aftermarket. Here's the Bosch part number I found. It was the only one I could find locally, 11027 for the carbureted 3rd gen Prelude. And this is what it looks like. Obviously, we have to reconnect this connector onto this, so I'll have to splice that together. But here's the old one. Here's the new one. Now, I'm really not good at soldering, so I'm gonna force myself to do it the right way and solder it, I guess. Get a little practice, but first I need to not burn anything and put this guy over here. And we need to snip off this bit. I'm gonna snip it probably about the same length. Right about there, leave it a little long. Snip that guy there. Pull back a little bit of the coating. I don't know, I'm sure you guys can roast me in the comments. I really don't know how to do this properly, but just to keep these things stuck together a little more, I think I'm gonna try and interlace them a bit. Again, probably not the best way to do this, but you live and you learn, folks. Put your comments down below if you actually know how to solder correctly. Honestly, this soldering iron is pretty old and wretched, and it was also very cheap. So I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't work. Oh, okay, that didn't, see, it just like falls off, and I don't really, maybe you put it on here first? Is that what you do? I'm just flinging hot. Oh, see, I don't get it. It just falls right off the wire. Oh, I figured it out, I think I got it. Okay, so you put it on there first. Okay, nice. And then you drop it down on the thing you're soldering. Am I doing it? Spin this a little bit and get the other side. Probably the worst soldering job you've ever seen. A bit excessive, but I tried. I'm gonna wrap it up in some electrical tape just to keep it from being extremely exposed. This guy is here, and actually already comes with a little bit of, not thread lock, but anti-seize, which is nice. So we can go ahead and thread this guy back in. Or not back in, but we can put the new one in. All right, I think that's pretty darn. I'm gonna go one more, just for safe measure. Okay, that feels pretty snug. And then we can feed this back down and into its connector. Oh, you gotta be shitting me. I think I cut it too short. Bro, that's a pretty sharp angle. That sucks. All right, I'm tired of messing with that O2 sensor. I just bent the bracket ever so much to get it to give the wire enough length, so no problem there. I'm gonna work on getting this air intake off so that way you can replace the sensor on the back side of it. Just a couple clamps and then some really fun clamps down below on either side. Always a pleasure getting those off. What is that? Oil? Why is there oil there? Why is there oil on top of my air intake? Just unplug that guy on the back, and then you should be able to lift this out of here. I remember it was way easier when it wasn't a manual transmission, because now I have the slave cylinder over here, or master, whatever, and it's really difficult to kind of move this out of here. Okay, with the air intake out, This is what we're replacing. Held on by 2 Phillips head screws. Here's the new one, part number Harry Alpha 1317613 by Auto Technica. Make sure they're in the same orientation. This one's got a little thingy. This one's got a bigger thingy, but see if this does the trick. This one does have an O-ring here, which is not on the other one. May make it fit a bit more snug. Because it's got an O-ring, I'm gonna bring those down evenly. Okay, simple as that. I am gonna keep this one because I'm not for sure certain that it's bad. So we'll hold on to it just in case. Also, probably original. Yesterday I worked into the evening replacing the oil on the Prelude as well as the oil filter. Unfortunately, I found some metal shavings in the oil. So I'm not sure how much longer this B20A3 really has left. It's been misfiring, or at least sounds like it's missing. It's been doing that for like probably 2 years now, and I've pretty much given up tracing down vacuum lines and replacing stuff. It's becoming, I couldn't even hardly buy an air filter for this car. So they're going out of stock. Nothing's available to replace parts on it. And maybe having to start actually looking seriously into fuel injection, swapping this car and putting a different motor into it. And maybe a new transmission, depending on what motor I go with. Whew, sucks, dude. I mean, I put a little bit of seafoam in the motor, in the crankcase last time I did the oil change. Not a lot, but a little bit. So maybe those metal shavings got loosened up. I don't know. I'm gonna do another oil change here probably sooner rather than later, and then see if there's more shavings in it or not. But either way, I guess we'll just keep chugging along in this Prelude until I have to call AAA one day and get a tow home. Took the Lude to the gym, and no check engine light. It's running better, even though I found metal shavings when I did the oil change. It's running honestly better after doing the coolant bleed last night as well. And then I also tweaked the cold start and the idle screws a bit, which I definitely do not recommend unless you know what you're doing. But I've honestly just been tweaking stuff since I've owned this car, and who knows where OEM is. But the reason I say that is because if you start tweaking those screws because you have an issue elsewhere, if you fix that other issue, now the screws are gonna be messed up because you tweaked it to the broken motor, and now you're gonna have to set it back now that you fixed the problem to the original. So that's why I say that, is it's better to fix the problem than it is to tweak those screws unless you really need to or know what you're doing. So I'm just gonna keep sending it with the Prelude until it doesn't wanna send it anymore, and then we'll look at a motor swap. But I also want to address the toe issue I have with these tires. Since putting the suspension back to where I like it, I have some pretty gnarly toe out. Like right now my wheel is straight. You can see how badly that wheel is towed out. And then on this side, again, the wheel is straight. Not as bad, but still towing out. So I'm gonna jack this thing up and see if I can just do a little at-home DIY alignment. So right there in focus is my tie rod end. So you have to loosen up the nut that's on there. Mine was a 19 mil. Then you have to spin, let me see, oh my gosh, spin this whole rod here to push the tire in or out, depending on which way you have to fix your toe. By the way, you have to hold that center beam with a 12 mil to basically screw that nut back on with a 19 mil. It's kind of the best way I can explain this. It's gonna be trial and error, but I tweaked it a little bit, and I'm gonna do the other side, and then I'm gonna put the whole car back down and see how it looks, and then make any further adjustments from there. With the Prelude back on the ground, I think I may have overdone this one. It's hard to say. I may need to back this one back out a bit. I think I may have done a little bit too much toe in. And this one, I think I still need to go in actually a little more. I think I'm still towing out. Yeah. This side, I feel like I'm still towing out a bit. And this one, I need to bring back in. I think it's, I don't know, I'm so torn, guys. I'm using eyeballs to do this alignment. So I guess it's only gonna be as good as my vision. And with the second adjustment done, I'm pretty darn close to, I'm not gonna say it's a perfect alignment by any means, but it's for sure better than what it was. And now we're not doing that crazy awkward toe out reverse pigeon toe thing. And I also took the bolt out of this fog light, and I added a washer to act as a spacer underneath the bolt, because if you guys remember, like a year and a half ago, I mashed my bumper getting off of a tow truck, and it warped this fog light bracket a bunch. So I just added a little washer in there to make it sit a little more level, as before it was kind of cockeyed. So that looks better. So with the Prelude, you know, a little bit nicer than where we left it last. I'm pretty happy with that. I hope you guys are enjoying the content. I know a lot of you are extremely anxious for Prelude stuff, so I hope it's better than what you expected. And if it is, make sure you leave a thumbs up. Comments below, let me know what projects you guys are working on. I always love to read about it. And yeah, I guess me and the Prelude, maybe the Tacoma. We'll see you in the next video. Keep elevating, my friends. Adios.